Contrary to the claim of the Prime Minister of Israel, this aggression does not fall under a supposed right to pursue terrorists wherever they are, but rather it is an attack on a mediating state, a peacemaker that has dedicated its diplomacy to resolving conflicts through peaceful means. It is also an attempt to kill the politicians who are members of the delegation negotiating with Israel. They are studying an American paper to respond to it. Isn't this the definition of a rogue government? No party seeks to assassinate the delegation it is negotiating with unless its goal is to sabotage the negotiations, and for it negotiations are merely a continuation of war by other means and a way to manipulate public opinion to mislead the Israeli public. For this reason, its leader wants to continue the war. He believes in what is called Greater Israel, and he considers the war an opportunity to expand settlements and change the status quo at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound as he plans for annexation operations in the West Bank. There is no longer any doubt that ethnic cleansing and changing the reality of the occupied territories and even imposing new facts on the region is the goal of this war. The Israeli Prime Minister, who boasts of having changed the face of the Middle East in the last 2 years, indeed intends for Israel to intervene wherever and whenever it wishes. He dreams of the Arab region becoming an area of Israeli influence. The Arab and Islamic countries which convened and held the summit in Doha have warned of the consequences of this dangerous delusion.
In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, Your Excellency, President of the General Assembly, Your Excellency, Secretary General, distinguished attendees, peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you.
The United Nations was established 8 decades ago based on a number of rules and principles reached by humanity after 2 world wars. These principles are based on maintaining international peace and security, respecting human dignity, the sovereignty of states and their internal affairs, and international cooperation for the benefit of our peoples and humanity. The retreat of this international system logic in favor of the logic of power means allowing the rule of the jungle to prevail, where concept of law and justice become irrelevant, and where those who overstep others gain privileges simply because they can. This is the new political realism which has been reduced to merely accommodating the ability to impose the status quo. There is a catastrophic short-sightedness in this behavior, as the violations committed in international relations. He considers tolerance as weakness and views the tolerant as incapable. The topic that should currently lead the discussion in international institutions is how to restore the strength of the collective security system according to the United Nations Charter and the return of effectiveness to international legitimacy. Distinguished guests, as you know, Doha was subjected to a treacherous attack on the 9th of September, targeting a meeting of the Hamas delegation at the residence of one of its members. In a residential neighborhood that includes schools and diplomatic missions. As a result of this aggression, 6 martyrs fell, including a Qatari citizen serving in the Laquiya Internal Security Force, and 18 were injured. This aggression was a serious violation of the sovereignty of a state and a blatant and unjustified breach of international norms and conventions. But the entire world was also shocked by the circumstances of this heinous act, which we classified as state terrorism. Contrary to the claim of the Prime Minister of Israel, this aggression does not fall under a supposed right to pursue terrorists wherever they are, but rather it is an attack on a mediating state, a peacemaker that has dedicated its diplomacy to resolving conflicts through peaceful means. For 2 years, strenuous efforts have been made to reach a settlement to stop the war of extermination being waged against the Palestinian people. In the Gaza Strip, it is also an attempt to kill the politicians who are members of the delegation negotiating with Israel. They are studying an American paper to respond to it. As you know, Qatar, as a mediating state during the negotiations, hosts delegations from Hamas and Israel. And the mediation has indeed accomplished, in cooperation with Sister Egypt and the United States of America, the release of 148 hostages. We continued the mediation even though Israel unilaterally cancelled the last truce without providing any justification. We are driven by the hope of reaching a permanent ceasefire, the release of all hostages, the withdrawal of occupation forces from the sector, the entry of humanitarian aid, and the liberation of Palestinian prisoners. They visit our country and plan to bomb it. They negotiate with delegations and plan to assassinate their members. It is difficult to deal with this mentality that does not respect the simplest principles of dealing between humans. Predicting the actions of their owners is almost impossible. Isn't this the definition of a rogue government? No party seeks to assassinate the delegation it is negotiating with unless its goal is to sabotage the negotiations, and for it negotiations are merely a continuation of war by other means and a way to manipulate public opinion to mislead the Israeli public. If the price for freeing the Israeli hostages is stopping the war, then the government of Israel, abandons their liberation as its real goal is to destroy Gaza to the point where living, working, education, and treatment become impossible, meaning the essentials of human life are absent, paving the way for the displacement of its residents. For this reason, its leader wants to continue the war. He believes in what is called Greater Israel, and he considers the war an opportunity to expand settlements and change the status quo at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound as he plans for annexation operations in the West Bank. There is no longer any doubt that ethnic cleansing and changing the reality of the occupied territories and even imposing new facts on the region is the goal of this war. This treacherous attack on the sovereignty of a Gulf state thousands of miles away has shown this. The Israeli Prime Minister, who boasts of having changed the face of the Middle East in the last 2 years, indeed intends for Israel to intervene wherever and whenever it wishes. He dreams of the Arab region becoming an area of Israeli influence. The Arab and Islamic countries which convened and held the summit in Doha have warned of the consequences of this dangerous delusion. Israel is not a democratic state in the mineral-rich region, as its leaders claim, but is in fact hostile to its surroundings and involved in building an apartheid system and in a war of extermination. The head of its government boasts to his people that he prevented the establishment of a Palestinian state and promises them that a Palestinian state will not be established in the future. And he prides himself on preventing peace with the Palestinians and that he will prevent it in the future. Israel is surrounded by countries that have either signed a peace agreement or are committed to the Arab Peace Initiative. But it does not settle for truces and ceasefires, even those based on imbalanced power dynamics. Instead, it wants to impose its will on its Arab surroundings, and anyone who objects to this is, in its propaganda, either a terrorist or anti-Islamic. And this is what public opinion, even in countries allied with Israel, is becoming aware of and rejecting. And here we are witnessing the emergence of a global solidarity movement similar to the global movement against the apartheid system in the last century. And I must not miss this opportunity to inform the Arabs of my appreciation for the global solidarity with Qatar including the statement by the Security Council that condemned the aggression with the unanimous agreement of its members. Distinguished guests, Qatar has chosen to remain true to its approach of standing by the values and principles that the international community is supposed to be based on, and believing in the possibility of reconciling them with interests when politics is rational and realistic, and not fearing to raise the voice of truth when silence prevails, and adhering to diplomacy where opponents easily resort to using weapons. We have engaged in a difficult mediation to stop the war, ensure the flow of humanitarian aid, and release prisoners and detainees. We face disinformation campaigns against our efforts, but those campaigns will not deter us from continuing our efforts in partnership with the sisterly Arab Republic of Egypt and the United States of America. Our firm belief is that peace in our region cannot be achieved without the international community, especially the Security Council, taking a decisive stance by moving away from being led by the occupation's rhythm in imposing reality in its successive wars. To resolve the Palestinian issue based on ending the occupation of Palestinian territories and allowing the Palestinian people to exercise their right to self-determination and establish their independent state with East Jerusalem as its capital on the borders of 1967 in accordance with international legitimacy resolutions and the two-state solution agreed upon by the international community. We appreciate the role of the countries that have recognized the state of Palestine. There is no doubt that these recognitions hold moral significance as they send a message that violence and more violence do not succeed in eliminating a just cause like the Palestinian cause, and we urge other countries to recognize the state of Palestine. Believing that instability knows no boundaries and that humanity's fate is interconnected, the state of Qatar has continued its diplomatic efforts to contribute to resolving other crises, such as the war in Ukraine and the wars in Africa. And perseverance in these efforts with our partners in the African continent has resulted in significant steps towards establishing peace, most notably the signing of the Declaration of Principles in Doha between the government of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the Congo River Coalition. The March 23 movement supports a US-led path to a comprehensive peace agreement in the east of the country. The state of Qatar will remain an active partner and the international community to resolve disputes and conflicts through peaceful means and seize opportunities for global peace. Distinguished guests, some countries in our region still suffer from a lack of stability and security. However, there are some positive developments that bring hope. Sister Syria has been witnessing a new phase since the end of last year, which we hope will be the beginning of a path towards achieving the aspirations of the Syrian people for stability, development, and the rule of law. This comes after closing a dark chapter in the history of their country. Qatar has consistently stood by the Syrian people throughout the previous years, and I used to mention his case from this platform, even when it seemed to have been dropped from the international political agenda. The international community must seize the current opportunity to stand by Syria to successfully overcome this transitional phase so that Syrians can enjoy a normal life after decades of suffering. And experience in other Arab countries has taught us that building state institutions and establishing relationships between the state and the general public on the basis of equal citizenship with respect for religious, ethnic, and cultural diversity is of utmost importance at this stage, and the state of Qatar will spare no effort in providing the necessary support to Sister Syria. And I am confident in the ability of the Syrian people to overcome the difficulties of the transitional phase, reject all forms of sectarianism and violence and other elements of discord, and refuse external intervention, especially Israeli attempts to divide Syria, and act as if the areas south of Damascus are Israeli spheres of influence. Lebanon has also witnessed positive developments represented by the election of General Joseph Aoun as President of the Republic and the appointment of Dr. Nawaf Salam as Prime Minister, which constitutes an important step towards stabilizing the situation in the country. The State of Qatar continues to stand by Lebanon, its people and its institutions, and support the Lebanese army. We emphasize the necessity of implementing United Nations Security Council Resolution 1701 and the withdrawal of Israeli forces from the positions they occupied during the recent war and stopping their interference in affairs. Internal Lebanon. As for brotherly Sudan, its people are still suffering from an unprecedented humanitarian crisis due to ongoing violence. We once again call on all parties to prioritize the supreme national interests and engage in a comprehensive dialogue that leads to sustainable peace, preserves Sudan's unity, independence and sovereignty, and fulfills the aspirations of its people for security, stability, and development. We express our support for the regional and international efforts aimed at achieving this goal, distinguished guests. Doha has always been a global capital hosting major political, economic and sports events, and a hub that brings together leaders and decision makers from around the world to consult and formulate practical solutions to common global challenges. It will host the Second World Summit on Social Development from the 4th to the 6th of November 2025. We look forward to welcoming you. During this conference, and there is no doubt that the international community's trust in us is based on a record of organizational successes achieved by the State of Qatar over the years. Based on this solid legacy, it submitted its bid to host the 2036 Olympic Games, believing that sports are not just a competition, but a bridge connecting peoples and a platform for establishing the values of peace and understanding. Our organization of the 2022 FIFA World Cup has proven that we are capable of making major sporting events a platform for communication and rapprochement between different cultures. In conclusion, the State of Qatar, while acknowledging the magnitude of the challenges facing the international community, reaffirms its commitment to upholding justice, building bridges of peace, and promoting fairness and justice in international relations. Thank you, and peace, mercy, and blessings of Allah be upon you.